So for our presentation, we will be divided into 4 stakeholders. For the first one is the sustainability of our mission and conservation and Bukit Merah Orangutan Island Foundation Charter. And for the second one is the relationship, networking and awareness. For the third one is the fundraising section. And the final one, stakeholder number 4, is research and development. So with that, as a reminder to our presenter, you will be given 15 minutes to present, and the bell will ring signaling your remaining time. And so for our first presenter, I think he is already. He asked me for another minute, so I'm just going to slowly.
We can do the second one.
Yeah. Going to the second one?
Yeah.
Is it okay with you? We are going to the stakeholder number 2. Okay? You good to go? Good to go. Okay, so he is from Universiti Tun Hussein on Malaysia, campus Bakar, Johor, and with his education background, primate taxonomist and geneticist working on Malaysian primates since 2009, and are currently focusing on conservation of banded dangors in Johor with PhD in genetics. Please welcome Dr. Mohamad Abdul Latiff bin Abu Bakar. Yeah, we are going to change this slide. Stakeholder number 3. Doctor, please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan selamat datang everyone. Okay, thank you Pengurusi Majlis for your kind introduction. So while waiting for the slides, we are the first group. So basically, initially kita combine 2 group. Kita combine 2 group. Initially we are 2 different group. The first one is on sustainability of the mission. Second one is on conservation and charter of Kamar Island. So, okay, next. So the first thing that we discussed in our very interactive and engaging session, I have a very interesting group of people with me. I think everyone can hear that we are laughing and screaming at each other. So jangan salah faham. It's a healthy discussion. Okay, so first one yang kita tengok adalah vision statement lah. So this is the current vision statement. So I just want to show this one first. So the current vision statement is promote the conservation of orangutan through ex situ efforts at Orangutan Island, encompassing first one, awareness campaign, education program, research study, publications of papers and books, collaboration with university, participation at wildlife summits, and sustainable revenue streams. So through our discussion, we collectively agree that a vision statement should be something that we look forward to in 50 years. So what is the vision of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island? So looking at the current vision statement, I think we can agree that there is a mixture of vision, actions, and objective. So what we do is we simplify the vision statement. Next. So this is what we propose. As simple as this. Because in the original vision statement, there is some objective being mixed up with the vision. So the vision that we propose is for Bukit Merah Orangutan Island to be a globally recognized center of excellence for orangutan conservation. So this encompasses everything from ex situ management, ex situ facilities, veterinary medicine study, research, captive management, captive breeding, everything. So this should be the vision for Bukit Merah Orangutan Island, which is to be a center of excellence that are globally recognized. And how we are going to achieve this vision statement. Some of our members proposed that we should put a timeline for the vision to be a globally recognized center of excellence for orangutan conservation by 2030, for example. So I think we leave that to the Board of Trustees to decide later on. Okay, next one. So this is the mission, the current mission, to increase awareness on the plight of the orangutan, to promote research on conservation biology and veterinary medicine, which is we think is very specific, and to ensure the sustainability of orangutan islands through innovative revenue generation channels. So we, of course, harmonize the mission with our proposed vision. Thanks. So this is what we propose. All right, the mission to enhance the role of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island by taking into consideration the following. The first one, to strengthen the ex situ management, so that when, let's say, in like 30 or 50 years, when Bukit Merah Orangutan Island become a globally recognized center of excellence, this will be a referral center on how to have the best practice for ex situ management for any captive breeding wildlife. Second one, to enhance and emphasize on education and awareness. I believe there is another group discussing about awareness, so we have to take this into consideration because this is one of the main roles of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island, which is to enhance. We know that the education and awareness program are already in place, but we want to enhance and emphasize on this. Third one is to establish networking, collaboration, and strategic partnership. So because we believe there is already a partnership between Bukit Merah Orangutan Island and various agencies and stakeholders, but we want to emphasize the strategic partnership so that moving forward, the partnership and also collaborations that are being planned or executed by Bukit Merah and its relevant stakeholders are for the benefit of both the orangutan island, and of course the stakeholder, relevant stakeholder. Right? The next one is to ensure sustainable financing, because we don't actually feel comfortable with the term, the original term of to generate revenue streams. So we believe we can improve that to sustainable financing, and then to empower research and publication, and to initiate in situ programs. So this is not included in the previous vision and mission. So our group proposed that we should take into consideration the long-term strategy and actions and initiative on how Bukit Merah Orangutan Island can contribute to in situ project, name it in Sabah or Sarawak. So how we can facilitate, because it's going to be one of the best center of excellence for orangutan conservation in the future. Next. So this is the new objective. I don't actually show the current objective because I think everyone got a copy of the charter yesterday. So this is the new objective that we propose, to uphold ex situ conservation of orangutan in line with state, national and international policy and guideline. Right? Second one, to promote and enhance active conservation, education and awareness program. Third one, to strengthen strategic cooperation and meaningful constructive management between relevant state and national stakeholders. Because the original objective statement in the charter was really long and it's quite confusing, so we want to simplify it. Right? The next one is to ensure sustainable financing from corporate entities, and we leave and we ensure we want to have the corporate entities in the objective to actually highlight the importance of corporate involvement in Bukit Merah Orangutan Island, and other funding agencies for continuous research and development for orangutan conservation. And then the fifth one is to diversify the role of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island by incorporating applied research. So we actually change this from conservation biology and veterinary medicine to applied research, because we believe moving forward, fundamental research will be, I would say, we need more applied research on and innovations on how to manage the orangutan. And last one is to support in situ orangutan conservation initiative, right? Next one, so this is the last part, which is the roles of conservation. The first one is contribution to conservation education, which is the main role of ex situ facility, right? Such as Bukit Merah Orangutan Island. And then contribution to ex situ conservation, right? In terms of management, R&D, publications, and so on. The third one, assurance population. This is the term that I just learned today from Dr. Kevin, in which the ex situ facilities such as Bukit Merah Orangutan Island can be the insurance for the future threats and changes that may happen in the wild. So having populations of orangutan in Bukit Merah Orangutan Island is one of the initiatives to assure the population for the future. And the next one is conservation breeding, which is a long-term initiative that we have to take into account, which also can be one of the contribution of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island for conservation of orangutan. Right, next one. This is the last one, don't worry. Okay, so for, we actually emphasize on conservation education, because I think this is one of the main strengths of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island. We have various facts here, but I think the one that we always, the one point that we always come back whenever we're discussing for 3 hours this morning is the need to establish a link between Bukit Merah Orangutan Island, Sabah, Sarawak. The link in not just sending the orangutan back and forth, but how can we link and promote the natural habitat in Sabah and Sarawak in Bukit Merah, and how the tourism or ecotourism center in Sabah Sarawak can promote Bukit Merah. So it will happen both ways, and of course the link also involve collaboration, knowledge transfer program, because when we're discussing, we just learned that Sabah is doing something that's testing under Sabah Wildlife Department, and Sarawak have their own strategy and also their objective for orangutan. So I think we need to have a platform, and Bukit Merah Orangutan Island can be this platform that combine all this knowledge, all this research, all this development from zoo, from university, from state government, from state authorities, and we can have this national coordination of orangutan conservation for Malaysia, and we hope we can have this population for the next 100 years in this collaboration. So I think that's all. I don't have any more slides. I think this is the same thing. Okay, so that's all from our group. Tak ada Q&A. Tak ada Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I believe it's worth the wait, because we have all pictures of, like, at least we understand that there's something that we can do about our vision, our objective, and also the charters that might need some, how to say, modification or some sorts. Thank you so much, Doctor. Now, for our next presentation, based on the relationship, networking, and outreach frameworks for the Orangutan Island Foundation. For our presenter, she is from Johor, just like my mom, and, but she's working with Sarawak Forestry Corporation, and with education background in forestry, parks and recreation, and also interpretation. And with 22 years in experience in Sarawak, it comprises of community program, education program, and also interpretation program. Here, I am pleased to invite Puan Mahmud, our presenter, next presenter to the stage.
diam ya. Miss Bracken ya. Bracken warning me, Istari, don't talk too much. Bracken, saya tak talk too much lah, sharing saja. Okay, Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera. Salam hari terakhir kita bersama. Sedih pula saya rasa. Okay, my group is from group 2. Since the group 1 tadi dia kata discussion, healthy discussion, my group energetic discussion. Power lagi tu. Okay, because when we talk about relationship, networking and outreach, so our group have to have a good relationship, betul kan? Gaduh-gaduh manja. Okay. Before we come up with our finding for our discussions, they have some our concerns about our orangutan island. So they have a question here, which I think some of yayasan or the expertise have to think about it and then to solve this message, especially on missing link. Nanti saya ada sikit and then concept of conservation, rehabilitation, release program and perception. Okay, 4 ni because we want to change the mindset of the people when we want to bring them together, work with our orangutan islands punya program. So contoh what I can see now, concept of conservation and rehabilitation. Kalau rehabilitation ni selalunya in our Sarawak, the achievement ataupun the target is to release the orangutan in the wild. But in here, sorry to say, I go to orangutan islands, I see dia masih dalam cage, so I feel macam kesian. Is beza dengan kami di Semenggok, you can see orangutan berjalan bersama-sama dengan all the visitor. So the feel lain lah. In terms of rehabilitation tu, I think we have to review balik dia punya proses. And then release program, I don't think here they have a release program, tak ada kan? Tak ada. Okay, and then perception. Perception ni especially untuk program-program sekolah. In terms of, kalau kita selalu cakap, orangutan only can found in Borneo and Sumatra. Dekat Perak ada. So we have to change the mindset the kids. Why orangutan ada di Perak? That message must be not miscommunication lah. Okay. So I think this one I give to the all expertise lah to answer the question. Okay. So the process how to develop our networking, and then is the first thing is we have to identify who our stakeholders. Okay. So we have proposed some of the committee, local, public, tourist board, agency, travel agency, pendidikan or student, IPT, IPTS, government agency. This one is our proposal. Maybe they have more agency relevant. We can put in the stakeholders. Okay, next. Alright. So in our group, we have already proposed a 5 years framework. 5 years framework, which we start with the networking, which we start to identify, after we identify the stakeholders, we come up with the main jawatan kuasa. Okay, main jawatan kuasa is the person which we have to do engagement ataupun MOU with this or the agency to agree to help or to engage with the orangutan island, with the yayasan to contribute the frameworks for the next future, for 5 years futures lah. Okay, so this one selalunya memang mastermind lah kalau main jawatan kuasa ni. So they have, maybe we have to get volunteer collaboration from this agency lah. Since I don't know with the yayasan here, tidak dikontrol di bawah piritan kan? Tidak. So dia di bawah swasta, maybe we can get volunteer from agency berkanun, federal or NGO. So we appoint them, become our jawatan kuasa. After that, we have to set the objective for each our program. So now we have part, what we can see here, the education, promotion and public awareness, collaborations, others and research. Okay? So after we have that networking, so we have to create a special or specific module for each of our target group. So we know contoh is for education. Maybe we have to come up with a education program or module based on the standard on Jabatan Pendidikan. Because we need to involve Jabatan Pendidikan to help Kementerian Pendidikan to help us to come up with a module which is must cross the curriculum. Okay? So the Jabatan Bahasa is must be ada Kementerian Pendidikan inside there. Okay, untuk promotion and public awareness, I think in the promotion part, we just use media, tourism, guide and committee to help to promote Bukit Merah Islands Orangutan. So it's easy to us to get the media, contohnya media. So we bring the media here and then educate them with the right message and then ask them to give a story baik-baik sikit dalam newspaper to TV, because last time saya dengar this forum masuk dalam TV3. So that is a good step which we see kita boleh promote menggunakan TV3 tadi. And collaboration untuk program with the local committee, NGO and international committee which we need to have daripada luar untuk support program-program yang sedia ada. Okay? And then others ni contohnya TV3, corporate bodies and IKEA ni, it may be one of dari yang kita boleh tengok is Jom Heboh. Maybe we can bring the Jom Heboh here to help us to promote our Bukit Merah. And then I think research tu dah banyak dah dekat di Bukit Merah. But maybe we can make it more dengan international scientists lah. Alright, so untuk this part, outreach part, we target is around 3 years, which we have to focus with the target group and then with achieve our objective. And then after 3 years, we need to do the measurement. It like macam KPI lah, KPI, which dalam KPI kita make sure all this activity ataupun all the objective must be have a transformation, especially on the community part, impact for from our program with all the target group, visibility, share public and sustain finance, financial and recognition. Yang ini kita jadikan sebagai penanda aras lah during on the 3 years. After that, maybe the Jabatan Bahasa have to review or to maintain or to more collaborate, to get more collaboration daripada another agency lah, untuk make sure the framework untuk setiap 5 tahun akan di-review. Okay? Lagi? Okay, so itu saja dari pihak kami.
Thank you, Mr. Quite a compelling framework, if you ask me, because it's comprises of quite an extensive list of target audience and also the objectives of what we should go through with relationship and networking and also outreach framework. And moving on with our next session, so we have talked about the objectives or the foundation, relationship, and we are going to discuss elaboration more onto the most crucial, one of the crucial parts of the foundation itself is the fundraising parts of the foundation. So with that, I would like to invite our advisor, Tuan Haji Azmil Khuzaid Zakaria, to elaborate more on the discussion that we have had earlier this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
body thinks it's young, but my eyes are telling me I'm not that young anymore, so I have to put these on first. When I see everyone, I can wear them, so I'll have to be taking them on and off. Alright, so thank you very much. Thank you to everyone in the group I was in this morning. Actually, I had asked if someone else would have been able to give the presentation because I've been speaking so much. But fortunately, I love the sound of my voice, so when no one volunteered to do so, I was quite happy to give the presentation. So we have the participants here, of course. Alright, we'll go to the next slide. We've looked at it in terms of fundraising. We couldn't look at the specifics so much because it relied on what the foundation is going to be doing. Right? So we've identified in broad areas the contributors, the private sector, the GLCs, public, and also looking at some international collaborations, research collaborations, and visiting scientists. And we're looking at it in terms of, first and foremost, it's about sustainability of the island. But beyond that, fundraising needs to help address the programs we'll be running, the education programs, the research programs, the conservation and tourism. And one important thing that we needed to do is, a lot of people see the island as a business. It's a tourist attraction. It's a revenue generator. Right? In fact, in the vision or mission, it says generate revenue in mission, right? So we have to separate that. We have to let people know that on the one hand, yes, we do collect ticket revenue. We may review that as well. But on the other hand, we need to push the message that we're providing a service, right, to the community, to the various communities, whether it's the scientific community, the local community, the international community, the community of orangutans and conservationists. So we're providing this service, and for that, we're raising funds, right? So in all of this, the most important thing we need to be doing is creating that awareness. And I think this is something that most of the groups have spoken about as well. As I said the other day, if you go to Taiping, a lot of people there don't know there's orangutans here. Forget about Penang, KL. If even people in Taiping tak tahu, but as I've shared with my group, as I've shared with all of you as well, we're a bit camera shy sometimes. So a key thing that we need to do, if we can go to the, on the right we have education and SIPA. SIPA was just explained to me because for the last 2 years I've been dealing with another SIPA, CIPAA, which is a Construction Industry Payment Adjudication Act. So it's a very different thing, as I learned earlier. Alright, so if we can go to the next slide. Alright, so outcome, first thing we have to do before we can raise funds is we have to create awareness. Create awareness of what we're doing. First and foremost, that we're here. And then what we're doing. And then how it benefits everyone. So then this of course needs to have a good story. Our objectives, I think, was discussed in the earlier group, and I think we've got something strong there. But beyond that, we need to have a good story. Because even if we have a good objective, which I believe we did even before this, we didn't have a good story. So having that good story will help sell the island, and sell the idea that what we're doing is good. And then one other item number 3 3 new calls for fundraising. This was highlighted to say that funding our operational issues is next to impossible. Right? Getting funding for our staff, getting funding for our daily operations, our administrative costs, even sometimes getting funding for the food and medicine for the orangutans. That's tough. It's an uphill struggle because people always say, you're a business, you're selling tickets. How come you cannot sustain yourself there? Right? So we'll try to shift away from that as well and rather raise funds for these other activities we're doing, whether they're conferences or educational programs or even contributing towards in situ conservation programs. A fourth thing we will relook as well is this idea of ecotourism and voluntourism. One of the members of the group mentioned the case of Spilo and an arrangement with the London Zoo, where volunteers who wanted to come and volunteer had to pay £2,000. That's 12,000 ringgit just to go to somewhere and live in the jungle for a while and help take care of orangutans. It takes a certain type of person to want to do that. But it was done. Right? People did pay this money. We had a similar but very small scale program like that pre-pandemic. So we had stopped it, even not just because of the pandemic. We made an active decision to stop some of these things while we reviewed how we would conduct these programs. So it's timely that we need to relook how we do these paid volunteer programs. Number 5, we're looking at educational programs, and this will again cut across all levels, from kindergarten all the way up to university as well. And I think this is where we need to be collaborating with Sabah and Sarawak as well, and coming up with modules that can be used in training. And even collaborating with universities in sharing these modules at a modest fee. But I think this is something that, we felt that this is a potential direction to go towards, to also develop further educational programs, not just for the specialists in the field of veterinary medicine or wildlife medicine or conservation, but also for anyone else. And of course, once you start looking at the younger ages, we don't have to be so specialized. And one other thing that we looked at was an adoption program. We have 15 orangutans today, and we can look at an adoption program where organizations or individuals can contribute funds towards the care and preservation, the care of the orangutan. I'm very familiar with a program like this because my children have adopted animals in American zoos. And this leads on to the next thing, because I said to them, hey, why are you asking me to give you money to adopt an animal in San Francisco? I'm not taking you there anytime soon. And my daughter, honestly, I don't remember if it was San Francisco or Chicago. I believe it was San Francisco. But all she did was, she took her iPad up and then opened up a live stream to the animal she wanted to adopt. I said, look, you don't have to take me there. I can see this animal any day. Right, which takes us to the next item, digitalization and live streaming. We've tried to test out a few things with live streaming, But unfortunately, the orangutans are also curious about these new things we've put up, and also the cameras have come down. And we have some beautiful close-ups of inside their mouths as well. So it's something that we'll have to look at as we go. Oh wow, I think I'm the only person who got a bell. As I said, I like the sound of my own voice. Right, so I think we don't have too many slides, so these are some of the ideas we had. But as I said, sometimes when we're sharing ideas, we hit on innovative things, right? So we've actually gone outside of our area a little bit. And, you know, I've always joked, when I joined, I've always joked that the vision statement that we have is, well, one thing is correct that it's more a mission. And the other, I always called it the vision novel, because it's too long. Right? I happened to share it, and Dato' Neo gave us a brilliant idea. Next slide. An orangutan on everybody's mind. Meaning simply, we want people to think about orangutans, know about orangutans, and care about orangutans. We've taken a page from Bill Gates and Microsoft. Originally, it was a PC on every desk. Right? So similarly, we want people to, all over the world, not just in Malaysia, but all over the world, to always remember orangutans. Let it be that when people think of a mammal or a primate, the first thing they think of is an orangutan. All right, so this is just also a proposed idea. All right. Okay, that's the end of it. Thank you very much.
Can I elaborate a bit on that? You see, basically today, what is the wild animal that's on everybody's mind right now? It's a bear that eats 10 hours a day and sleep for the rest. Doesn't do anything, just eat bamboo shoots. A panda, and we pay hundreds of millions of dollars, okay, ringgit, to have them in Bakar. To make it worse, when they have children, we will send them back to China. We don't make it to keep these kids. Luckily, they didn't have this kind of ruling when my father came from China. Otherwise, he would be back in China, right? Over here, in this beautiful country, right? So basically, what the panda has done has to actually imprint that on every child, on every human being in this planet. Nobody, everybody knows a panda, right? But a panda is really not a very lovable animal. It's, you know, it's a bear, right? It's a bit stupid and it's quite wild. Orangutan is actually a smart animal. You can interact with orangutans. It's a real thing, you know. It's a wonderful creature. So why can't we, instead of panda, we put orangutan into the minds of every kid, every human being on this planet? Thank you.
Thank you to Azmil and also Latiff for the elaboration. And so previously we talked about fundraising, and just imagine when all of the activities of fundraising we have achieved, and we don't have to worry about funding anymore, and what's next? So to spend all the monies, I guess we will go with research and development. And please welcome Dr. Shahrul Anuar from USM, discuss more on research and education, research and development.
Okay, terima kasih Zofadran, Mr. Chairman. Okay, terima kasih pada all the groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to my all group members. One of the level 4 charters, one of the charters dalam missions ialah untuk to make the Orangutan Island as the referral point for ex-situ research. Okay, that's and a lot of research has been conducted and been done by members from this room, and also that present, and also that are not in this room, and published and yet to be published. Okay? So it's all individual kind of things, okay, and then based on the research grant and etc. Based on the whatever funding that they got, okay. So that's very good, and then terima kasih. Thank you very much to all the research that been conducted. Okay, it's excellent work. So next, and then little bit of the introduction. Okay, and then first UIF, okay, around the island start with 4 individuals. Okay, so this recap of the little bit of the history. Okay, and then. So start with 4 individuals. They have current one. They have a 60, 8 male, 8 females, okay, and range from 4 months to 36 years old. And then loan and transport 2 individual, okay, and then birth they have a 12 individual, and then death within 22 years. Also we have quite a number of death of 10 individual. So that's how it started about more than 20 years ago. Okay? So based on that, all the research on behavior, on genetic, and then being conducted and published, and also about the little bit of the public awareness and person perception. Okay, next. So this is the key discussion. Okay, whatever that been researched before. Okay, now what need to be done? Okay, so it's basically. As the group 1 been touched before, the missing link. Okay, we also want to know what's the missing link. Okay, the missing link is just simple. Okay, either okay whatever want to cap, okay, forever, or we want to release back to the wild. Okay, so that's 2 different things, 2 different ball games here. Okay, whatever individuals that more than 8 years old is very different to train and then to release back to the wild. And then just start from the infant, the new babies, newcomers that we need to start them, okay, for the release program. But that's 2 different things. Okay, is one to keep at the assisted research, keep at assisted research, is going to go for the release program. So that's a different kind of research, and then they are no mix between these 2. Okay, they are two different programs. So that need to be clear first. That actually need to be clear first. Either which one want to release, we need to ID them at start at the beginning, and for the newcomers, new babies that come into the population, and then all the research that been proposed, that's new research or the sperm bank, lineage, or the inbreeding, etc. Okay, the study of fertility. This is all the list of research that yet important but yet to be conducted. Okay, I need no need to list them one by one. Okay, next. Okay, and then feeding, and then what type of, if any substitute foods like pellets or vitamin and etc. That's all type of new finding research that need to be conducted. Okay, next. Okay, this big requirement. Okay, next. Okay, and then this. Okay, so hopefully, okay, so we are still looking into the FC2. Okay, not whatever that need to be released. That's okay. So that's the need to be really defined. Okay, so yeah. Okay, as now. Okay. As a scientist, and then all the visitor is the Orange Island is already known as the place to conduct research on SC2 orangutan. Okay, and then hopefully can do more, and then with the points that we placed before to as the reference point. Okay, reference point is the keywords most important. Okay. So we need to also strategize about different strategies between either to cap SC2 forever or release some of the individual. Okay. Next. So what we look at now, the current facilities is better fit for the SC2. Okay. More need to be done is somehow need to have a program for release in the future. Okay. Suggested the key points that's suitable, all the facilities suitable for the SC2, and then all the top management you need to decide. Okay, this now. Okay, the the medium term goal and also the long term goal. Okay? So this all the multidisciplinary research that need to be conducted. Next, I think that's all again. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Shahrul. So we've heard about research. There's a long list of research and also development activities that we can do here in OUIF, and I believe it's not an exhaustive list as well. I think more and more researchers can come in and do all kinds of research related to orangutan, especially here at Orangutan Island. So for our next session, it's already we already reaching 3:23. I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Zari Shaliman to elaborate more on the four presenters earlier, and also to discuss about the discussion that we had previously. Thank you so much.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. For this time around, I'll be chairing the discussion sessions, and also maybe we can come to some conclusions for all the ideas that we have been presented to us today by the four groups that we have been discussing for about more than 2-3 hours. I'm quite impressed with many of the ideas that's come up from the discussion, which I think, especially with all the flow charts, the taglines, which I think I'm quite impressed because they can actually give some a breath of new ideas to how to move on with this, with our UI foundations. Okay. I'm not going to be elaborating more because I think you have heard more than enough of the points from each of the four groups that we presented. Probably I will want to start with any discussion point from any of this group that has presented just now. Maybe I can open the floor for any questions and discussions. Anyone to point out some views? Or maybe some comments? Yes, please, Dr. Nick.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. My name is Norma. I'm from Universiti Sains, Malaysia. With regards to the discussion made by Prof. Shahrul, just want to ask Prof. Shahrul, same university. Did you also discuss on something like the research gap? For example, research more on multidisciplinary research and asking people or visitors what they are expecting and whether or not after visiting the Pulau Orangutan, whether they gather some information or whether they understand the conservation that OUI been doing, something like that. I think that is the research gap that OUI should seriously look into. Yeah? That is one of the reasons. One of the suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. I think there's research people that did it. Yeah, on that. I think we publish also that. We publish also that by Prof. Badrul. And then on public perception before they enter. A lot of questions, and after they enter, what we learn. I think Prof can share the outcome, the publication. So thank you, Dr.
Sorry, another one thing. We also have like research from the social media, for example, TripAdvisor, because people they are free expressing their feeling via social media. So instead of taking into account people like coming and for example, TripAdvisor, because I just checked TripAdvisor, there's a lot of positive reviews by international tourists as compared to the local tourists. So that actually one of the things that maybe OUI can have a look at it, because they are free to write anything. So that is only one, because for example, social scientists, researchers actually can look at it or can study on sentiment, local tourist sentiment using big data. So you will know what people think of OUI. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the one. Data mining from social media, I think for TripAdvisor or the Google review, okay? Instagram, and then for Facebook also, okay? And then it's been conducted, I think, for data mining on social media, as we publish by to encounter the attack on the public. I think the same approach can be conducted and be published. Okay? So almost the same approach, data mining from social media. And then I think it's all the skill from the communication. Terima kasih,
Thank you, Prof. Shahrul. Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Mia, please.
Can I share with you my experience in fundraising, foundations, all that? Because I sit on several foundations and I've been involved in fundraising for a very long time. I just want to tell you the story of two hospitals which I'm a director of first. One is Nurhanisah Hospital in Penang. Charity hospital, 10 ringgit a day, the plants, no problem. Yeah, we rob the rich and give them. So you come, it's 250, I think. But if poor people come, can be also free. Okay, Nurhanisah Hospital. Next is Utah Hospital, a new teaching and community hospital in Kamar. Now, it's very hard to raise money for Nurhanisah today. Very hard, trust me. Okay, you see, you're charging money, you're robbing the rich, okay? Why we give you money? For Utah Hospital, we're building a new community teaching hospital. In 1 year, we raised 250 million. No problem. Simple. Right? So you see, so when it comes to fundraising, it has to be two things very important: new community, okay, and education. If you have three things, you can raise money. If you just say you have a community, no education, like this, no new, sorry, hard to raise money. So I think here we must project ourselves. Something new, okay, educational and community related. So I think, of course, all the ideas will come out. I'm not going to repeat all this, but I think from my experience, this is very important that we have all this to raise money. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Very well. Okay, we need to take note seriously on that, because that's the aim they want to bring forward for financial independence, gain some more funding for our research and plot on the island. Any more that want to voice out? Comments? I'd just like to point out something on what Prof. Shahrul had mentioned during his presentation just now, whether we want to decide whether we are going to go for ex situ, or I think is it breeding, Prof. Shahrul. So I think that is something that the decision must be made early on rather than later, so that we can focus more on our efforts to make sure that all our efforts are essentially contribute to the forward of our UI. I don't know whether somebody can have some ideas on that. Mungkin Pak Batno boleh komen sikit. Silakan.
I think group Dr. Latiff mentioned about conservation breeding. Yeah. First, I think as Prof. Shahrul listed in the slide, on the history of the orangutan, the first one is 4 individual, and then later breeding. Then my research indicated that more than it's not only big Pongo pygmies in the island, but also Pongo pygmies memorial. It means that there is a chance that hybrid individual is in the island. Yeah? But the problem now is to scientifically or to prove that hybrid individual in the island. Actually, it's very hard, yeah? Because I'm using the mitochondrial DNA and also several nuclear lockers, and still cannot detect the genetic break. Yeah? But maybe Dr. Latiff can, as yesterday I mentioned, that can elaborate more how the current latest technique that he used might help for to detect the hybridizations of the individual. Again, for the conservation breeding in your orangutan island, also we need to study back there, because as I said, Mr. Bracken also point out that the hybrid of individuals still in the island, and there is no possibility to release back to either to Sabah or also in Sarawak if this happened. Dr. Latiff, if you have any comment, because just now I'm also would like to ask you about the conservation breeding. Maybe you can add more on NTS or nanopore techniques.
Thank you, Prof. Firstly, on the identifications of hybrid individuals, of course, previously the technologies and the funds that we have only allow us to sequence the mitochondrial DNA, which is cheaper. We can do that for one individual, maybe 200 to 300 ringgit. But there is a limitation that you can only look at most 1,500 base pair of nucleotides, and that limits your understandings on the differences between individuals. But with current techniques and technologies that we have, we're looking into next generation sequencing, in which you are sequencing the genomic data in a big scale. In the lab, I mean, I think most of the, not most, some universities have the sequencer, especially those that have teaching hospital, right? We do have one in UTH, Illumina platform, that can generate 7.5 gigabase. We have commercial institutions that can generate 15 gigabase. And then come the new technology of Oxford Nanopore from Oxford University that can generate 50 gigabase at a cheaper price. So we can use this technology to look at the differences between individuals, of course. But as we had a very interactive discussion within our group, debating about the differences between subspecies, is it relevant? And I think our group come to similar proposals, like what I've been saying, that the focus of Bukit Merah Orangutan Island is preservation and assurance of population, not for the purpose of releasing and reintroductions. That might be a long-term vision for Bukit Merah Orangutan Island. That's why we put it as number 4, not number 1. And we organize our points as per the priority. So that's why we put number 4, just in case 10 years later, Bukit Merah Orangutan Island decided to go and to participate in reintroductions or rewilding program for the individuals in Bukit Merah Orangutan. But we believe the main focus should be preservation of the population, and how, by preserving the population here, we can generate data, we can do R&D, we can have a better practice for XC2 management. That's why the vision is to become globally recognized center of excellence for XC2 management. And talking about R&D again, I think we should move forward to innovative and applied research. I mean, I do agree that some of the research that I've listed by Prof. Shahrul groups are very interesting. But again, we have to look at applied research and how this research can help the management practices, not just by generating fundamental knowledge. Generating fundamental knowledge is good. You can publish paper, you can get promotions as a researcher in university. But how can it help the management of orangutan in this facility? Can I come and say, oh, I found out that orangutan in Bukit Merah have 15 phylum of bacteria in their stomach. So what? How can we translate that information for management? Should we change their feeding regime? Should we change the food? That's what I meant. Applied research, not just generating fundamental. So, yeah, I agree that we should do more on subspecies identification. Our group don't agree on releasing back to the wild, because we think we should maintain the integrity of gene pool of the population in the natural habitat in both Sabah and Sarawak.
Thank you very much. That's clear. Nothing there. I don't know. Any? Yeah. Izzati.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you so much. Actually, I agree with the idea of not releasing the orangutan. I just want to emphasize on our point for our group just now that we say, since the research group already agreed, it's a sustainability group, right? Dr. Latiff, yeah, to not to release, then I would suggest for Orangutan Island to drop the word rehabilitation in their promotion, perhaps. Because usually when somebody questions Orangutan Island, this is what they mention. We cannot say rehabilitation if we don't have a plan to release. So I would suggest to maybe drop it, or maybe we just replace with something better. Perhaps we emphasize on education, on the research, and also conservation.
Okay, Pak Teh, boleh komen sikit?
Not yet.
Okay, Dr. David.
Thank you. I'd just like to add on a little bit to what was mentioned earlier. Prof, I don't look at up to subspecies level.
Yes, which is not right now, not on Kipri.
Hybrids, no.
Hybrid, not yet.
Subspecies level.
Subspecies level,
So
yes.
one of the things we discussed is record keeping.
Yeah.
So if we know the parents are, then if the offspring is from that particular two parents, then we will know if it's a hybrid. So record keeping is very important. So one of the things that we discussed in our group was to have proper records. And I think we did not mention that we must, once we have proper records, then we don't ensure that we don't hybridize the orangs anymore from now onwards. Because we have the records, we know who are the subspecies, so we keep them separate for management purposes. Second is on conservation breeding. When we talk about conservation breeding, it is for reintroduction. That's the new terminology now. So we are not doing conservation breeding for the time being. That's why we call it preservation. Preserve these orangutans as a national population, national captive population within Malaysia. That means we share animals among zoos as and when necessary for a proper breeding program to be able to sustain them for a long period of time. So that is preservation. So we differentiate terminology so that we don't get confused. So if we say conservation breeding, that is eventually to be released back to the wild. That is conservation breeding. If it is not, then it's preservation. For the time being, preservation, but we also did mention in the long term, if the need arises, then there must be steps put in place to enable certain individuals to be released back to the wild. So that's where the record keeping comes back. Very important that we don't hybridize subspecies in any facility. So that is very important. The other one is on talking about something new, Dato was mentioning, is the long term, maybe not so long term, a need to look into having in situ conservation work funded by Bukit Merah Orangutan Island. So that will be something new and something very important and a good promotion and publicity, and also a means to raise funds for such work, because the responsibility of all captive facilities is to do in situ conservation. So that is something that is very important that we should look into and try to work towards that. It does not have to be long term. The long term stuff is like reintroduction and all that kind of stuff, which is not necessary at this point in time. There are enough orangutans so far still in our forest. But if we help in some conservation work in Sarawak, I was very interested when Prof mentioned that might have discovered a new population, and then somebody said it was just a nest, which could have been a sunrise nest. So we don't know whether that, but something like that. If we could find some research further to find out what's actually going on. So that involving the community, something new, and what is the third? Education, and educate people about these efforts. So that is something that we can look into for the long term. But it should start now that this in situ conservation work. All zoos are starting to do that. The foreign zoos, American, European zoos, all are doing in situ conservation work. So this is something that even typing can do a little bit of stuff already. So this is something that we should look into.
Yes, please.
I think the inevitability, and perhaps the elephant in the room is, if they don't survive, we will survive. I mean, basically that's what wildlife conservation is. This is the final so-called message which everybody should understand. If all your animals die, you're not going to live long life, right? So basically conservation is about human survival as well as animal survival. I think, in my own, for me, as long as that conservation is or something, right? So I'm interested in conservation because I want to conserve myself, my race, my human race, not only orangutans, right? Or pandas or whatever. So therefore, it is inevitable that we have to link, what happens in the wild with what we want to do in ex situ here, and also the human medicine, zoonotic. Look at zoonotic diseases today. I mean, it's very fortunate that ASF is not zoonotic. Otherwise, we will be gone. ASF killed pigs within 2 days. So mati, 100% mortality. So imagine that was zoonotic, will be gone, right? And there's so many zoonotic diseases, bird flu, swine flu, so many already, right? So I think we need to link eventually what we're trying to do with humans, what the humans are trying to do as well. The zoonotic part, I think, is something we need to work on. There's also something new.
Thank you, Dr. Mel. Interestingly, yes, I think that's one of the aspects of research which I think a bit lacking. We can, I think, improve that. Myself as a parasitologist, so I'm doing some zoonotic disease studies here as well, but in a small scale, not big ones. So, okay, regarding this, in situ work, I think there's a very good idea from Dr. Karim. But the only thing I think maybe because the cost, then related to funding need to be well planned before we can proceed with the idea. Maybe to Hadi Azmil can do some ideas, comment on that.
I think this is one of the things that we do need to look at because whatever it is, we can't work in a silo here. Whatever we do here has to be useful for orangutans in the wild as well. I'm not saying we need to open up a branch in Sarawak where we have wild orangutans as well. No, but we have to set some parameters on what we want to be doing to help our brothers and sisters in Sarawak. beyond that, Indonesia as well. Let's not forget them as well. Of course, first and foremost, we want to help Malaysia, but orangutans are an international thing. Right? So, yes, of course, raising funds, it's hard enough for us. For us to raise funds for someone else as well, it makes life difficult. But what's life without some challenges? So I think, as Dr. Kevin said, we can raise funds for that activity, and we'll make it clear. But some of those funds will also help us here. Or if we look at it the other way around, we raise funds for here, but a portion of it goes to help conservation efforts in Sabah and Sarawak. So it's, and hopefully people in Sabah and Sarawak will think the same way too. Right? You can raise funds there and help us as well. Right? So let's make it a two-way street. But we'll have to go over all these details. Banyak kerja lah, banyak kerja. But we have a good team here in place, easy and all, but I think we need to add on to this. We need to, first and foremost, we need to have our resident vet come in. We need to have our own cyber troopers to help out. There's a lot of these things which needs to be added on. So I think it's helping the in-situ conservation efforts needs to be part of our DNA too. It's something we need to be doing. But to what extent, we'll have to see how the funding ends up being.
Okay, thank you, Tuan Ji. Right, trying to think some of the points that from the presentation given just now. I'm also interested with the how we have to make some on fundraising, develop and send modules for training in OUI. I think that is something. In our university, US also, we're trying to get the lecturers to sell our courses to get funding and also income generating for the schools and also for the university as well. To do this, I think we need to have a more collaboration with the outside education centers, universities, maybe. I'm not sure whether we can try to make it from small scale first, and then we proceed to larger modules that can be used on top. But this, I think this need to be carefully planned and so forth. And then, I don't know, maybe anybody can have any comments on that?
Well, I'll add a bit on that as well, because as I mentioned, my earlier work experience was in early childhood education. So a big part of what I did was develop curriculums and sell them. I can tell you it's really hard to do. I think the universities know that as well. And as a college as well, I've run another university's program. It's not an easy thing to do. For the university as well to give up some of that control for someone else to run the program, or for us to develop a program and let someone else run it. It's a tough thing. So as Professor said, a lot of planning needs to go in it. We need to have a lot of discussions on with stakeholders, with the relevant, some relevant teachers as well, and we need to go at all levels. What we teach at the kindergarten level will be very different from what we teach at the adult level. The content has to be different, the approach has to be different. So these are all the things that, if we're talking about a good, age range of about 15 to 20 years, that's a lot of work that needs to be done. So it needs to be done over a period of time. And I think as an organization, we need to focus on which age range should we be hitting first. And as I said, we need to collaborate with not just the universities, because they can be the content providers, but with the other conservation areas and other organizations and even other NGOs, because there's a wealth of knowledge out there. It's just not centralized. So this is where we can start picking brains of not just local organizations, but also international organizations who has this data, who has this information. They may already have teaching materials. It may be that we license it or even localize it to make it more relevant for us, because I imagine the content in European countries may not be too suitable for use here, and vice versa. So that's a possible way of looking at it and jump-starting getting into those programs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, sudah petang semua. Okay, ada siapa lagi nak tambah komen ke? Okay. Yes.
Thank you. I, as an academic background, I always look at research and education, because this is very important. Otherwise, what we had before and the discussion, people don't know about us, and then we still have a lot of things to know about orangutan and to argue when people ask about orangutan conservation in Malaysia. So this orangutan island can be, of course, we can see some continue to upgrade, to bring more scientists overseas. Say for example, I am Professor Shahrul, collaborating with, I can say it's number one primatologist in laboratory in the world, in California, there is America. I think if we work together with them, they can come with money to work with us on something. Maybe the procedures is very important. We have the procedures on the Pemerintahan Ibu and the Sawah-Sawah, their own regulation. This is something that we need to look at to make them come and work on orangutan. There are many aspects, not just to go to the forest in orangutan. In Johor, for example, they were looking for many years with European orangutan. Here in Malaysia, I don't see very much except Europe, not very detailed enough. Because what happening, I'm very sure they are doing a lot of research in their own country with orangutan. That's why using their data, they apply here in Malaysia for conservation. So this model of orangutan island can be adopted as one of the research center, course education for the local scientists. Besides that, Latiff mentioned about volunteerism. Right? I saw on the internet there's an advertisement already for Sarawak, for example, on volunteerism. And there are companies organizing volunteer working on orangutan. Meaning that the demand for research and volunteer from overseas is there. Either they want to work for science or truly volunteer, or they want to spy on us from what happening in the country is another issue. But at least orangutan island can be developed as one of those center with, of course, combination and regulation that we should look at, not just call for volunteerism or for study, but we need to look at what are the criteria, something that make us or environment negative. I had some experience last time with Zakaria, for example, when we have the veterinary doctors from Europe,
you, Prof. That you want to add on?
Yeah. Sorry, bukan add on to that point lah. It's a different point, but very simple. I just want to check with Tuan Haji, and maybe with Dr. Kevin juga. I'm not sure whether in Zoom or here, do you have like a commission for tourist guide who brought in tourists to see orangutan?
Business-wise, we do work with a few travel agencies. Usually what we do is we will bulk sell tickets to these tour agencies, and there'll be a slight discount to it. So when they package it, I don't know what price they'll put on it. So we don't give a commission per se. We give them discounts on bulk purchase of tickets.
Okay, just maybe some thought, because my son is a licensed tourist guide. So when I talk to my peers, the way they look at the business of any business, they will promote it if they have an attractive commission. Although that business is not really good for people, but they will just push kau because of the commission. So maybe in a way of promote it. Maybe you can just do this in the short terms. Perhaps you can consider some commission if it is suitable with your policy or business. Why not? If not, it's okay. Just a question. Dr. Kevin, last time typing also ada commission? Oh, okay. Good travel agency. Yes. Okay. Correct. Can also but yeah, because a tourist guide, they say if the tourist guide will be the ambassador for the tourists. So whenever they hear about some places, because I've been to here many times, but none of guides came to around Thailand. Reason they said no commission. Because if you give to the travel agency, not tourist guide, not all tourist guide will enjoy that. Only the agency lah.
It is something we have considered, and we're trying to balance what our because ticket prices aren't that high. I think Taipei is even less than us right now, right? It's something we're willing to consider. Historically, what we've done is actually we've left that side of it to Akilan, the resort. We would bulk sell tickets to them, and because once they package it with everything else, the commission becomes a bit more attractive, a bit more worthwhile for the tour guides to want to come. If it's just on us on our own, may not be that attractive, right? So point taken, and it's definitely something that we have looked at and we will look at again.
Okay, thank you again. I think one of the main issues mentioned in the presentation is the visibility of MOUIF to the public awareness. I think besides the other main issue, I think this is one of the main issues you need to tackle earlier on. Can I get some comment from Mr. Prabha on this issue? How we want to tackle it? How in a short term we can at least gain more awareness in the public? Thank you.
See, we had actually studied avenues on how to create awareness for MOUIF, but we were curtailed in terms of funds available to us. So what we had done is that we had worked with some of the media owners, in particular New Straits Times Group, Star, NetGeo. We had also put up a billboard along the highway, just one, which was there for ages until the color faded, and you wouldn't even recognize what animal it was. So I guess at this moment in time, to use the platforms of social media is critical. Okay? I think TikTok, as you know, is the most popular social media platform out there today. Okay? And I think we should also look at IG. Okay? Facebook, you tend to aim at an older group. If you look at a younger group, not many of them use FB. So if you want to get the younger group, and these people will be the evangelists for OUI, and social media platforms is the best. But I think if we wish to go and use the national field to this being one of our national animals, next to the tiger and proboscis monkeys, I think so. We should approach the local media, invite them over, tell them to create stories about this. That will be good. For example, if you look at the start, they have their brats. Many of those young journalists, the brats, who were in the 15 to the 18 age group, many of them have actually gone to Ivy League universities in the States and in the UK. So they have a very good network. So I think one of the first steps we can do is to go and look at the Star Media Group. So besides tapping onto social media. Now, I think so one of the categories we had also discussed aiming at schools, which we have been quite successful at. But now we should also look into the school students, into using their social media platforms to communicate with their visits here. So it becomes a storytelling experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's good advice we given. TikTok, I think saya pun tak biasa dengan TikTok. I'm not sure whether. Tapi kalau we have some stuff, then younger generation, I think that we can train them to be duta media TikTok untuk UI, then be one creating a daily influencer and follower. Yeah, that would be good. Okay, all right. Anything? Any more? Any comments? Okay, yes. Mike, please.
I think while we were debating on some of the terms that we should use, Dr. Norma had actually said that the terms that we use actually very critical, whether it's conservation, whether it's preservation, whether it's research, whether it's education, whether we should use the word financial sustainability, financial independence, revenue streams. So I think that we need to go and create a uniform narrative where anyone who speaks on behalf of the foundation uses that narrative. And that narrative must be the correct narrative from now on. See, I got lesson 101 from Zaros during lunchtime. It was speaking the difference between preservation and conservation. You see, so I stand educated there. So I think that going forward we should really seriously look at what are the terms that we're going to use. That's actually very important because this is how it's actually communicated. Like if we use the word breeding, see, one of the problems that we face is that people actually around the world think that OUI is being used as a breeding center and the offspring is being sold. So see, the thing is that if I say it long enough, it becomes the truth. And it's very difficult to go and mitigate that situation. Thank you.
Yes, I agree on that. That's why I think most of the factors that the terminology and the definition of what we want to do now, we need to decide it as soon as possible so that we can actually clarify misunderstandings from the outside and also to realign us to really accurately focus on the way forward for our foundation. Okay. If there's no comments, anything. So I think I would like to wrap up this discussion session. I would like to thank you all the participants that given all the ideas and comments from all the 4 groups on the educations, the fundraising, and also the rally, okay, and the working. I think we do really need that input now so that we can decide what we're going to do for the next 5 to 10, 15, many years to come. Okay. With that, I would like to conclude the sessions. Give it back to the chair MC for today. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Zaid, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your input. With that, I believe it brings more clarity for the future of Orangutan Island and also ultimately to our residents orangutan. For right now, we will take a quick 15 minutes break, and afterward we can continue with closing ceremony. Teas and snacks are available at the back. Thank you so much.